What I want to cover today, this is actually a little bit of a fun one. Every week, if you go back in our archives of look at all sorts of different webinars, we've covered everything under the sun. We've covered the PPP program. We've covered fleet strategy and how much money do these businesses make after all. And we cover new announcements that come out from FedEx Ground and all sorts of different stuff. So I wanted to kind of do a lighthearted one this week and cover kind of my most frequently asked questions that I get. As you can imagine, I get to interact with a lot of people that have all kinds of interesting questions about contracting with FedEx Ground. And some of them, I always say there's no stupid question, right? Now, we all know there's some stupid questions, right? But, I kind of enjoy the creativity that people have when they're asking questions about stuff. So I'll kind of give you some of the 3 or 4 most commonly asked questions that I get, and then we'll kind of open it up for Q&A. And any question that you want to ask, you're welcome to. Number one, and this is actually relevant. So for those of you that know a little bit about my background, I ran a hedge fund for 5 years before doing this. So I'm a finance nerd. I love the stock market. I love commodities. If you ever want to just call and talk to me about the markets, I will always engage with you because that is what I love to do. If you look, this will prove. So I'm going to rotate my screen. Don't let this make you sick. But I'll show you my display. So I'm true to my form. I've got 4 different monitors and a laptop down here because 4 screens is not enough. I've got to have 5 screens. Back when I used to trade all the time, let me get this re-straightened. Back when I used to trade all the time, I'd have all these charts and everything up there. And, I was just watching all these different stocks. So Tesla, if you have been watching Tesla stock lately and seeing what a crazy town trade that has been, Tesla, as we all know, manufactures electric vehicles. And I say the more that Tesla's stock rises, the more questions that I get about electric vehicles. And for the longest time, electric vehicles have been pretty far away, like something that kind of works on a personal level, but really doesn't have a lot of usage in the commercial level until recently. So Workhorse, which manufactures trucks that we can opt to deliver out of, made a really significant announcement about the pricing and availability of electric vehicles that are set up for parcel delivery. If you, especially my current contractors here, if you haven't looked on Google and go to Workhorse electric vehicles, you'll actually see that there is a P1000 that they are starting the manufacture of that has 100 miles of battery life. There's 2 massive batteries that are under this vehicle, and it has a maximum speed of 75 miles an hour, which is good enough for any of us. And it is set up for many of you that have routes that are less than 100 miles a day, which that's not all of you, but a lot of my routes are less than 100 miles a day. The electric vehicle is actually coming around the corner. I got a quote a couple years ago on electric vehicles, and the prices of it, literally, they were like $180,000 a piece. I mean, it was outrageous. They are still massively expensive, but there are some states right now that are offering incentives towards the purchase of electric vehicles, particularly for commercial use. So I got a quote, a contractor shared with me a quote very recently of a unit that they were looking at, and it still had a high price, but they were offering a $90,000 rebate, which basically got the vehicle to be costing about $71,000. So it really brought the price down that without the rebate, it's not feasible. But at $71,000, that started to become really feasible really quickly. Now, there's all kinds of limitations, and we can talk about those limitations. Number one is, where do you charge it? I mean, that is the number one limitation, is that the overwhelming majority of the 660 FedEx facilities that are in the United States, I don't know this to be true, but I at least know that there's 2, maybe 3 that have it set up for charging inside of them. So it's a really small number of kind of pilot stations that are testing electric vehicles. But FedEx Ground came out with a survey about 8 weeks ago asking a select pool of contractors, if we installed electric charging stations in the terminal, would you use them? So I would read the handwriting on the wall here. Being an early adopter, if you haven't driven in a Tesla or an electric vehicle, it's a really different experience. It's like driving a super high-powered golf cart, right? Because there's just no real mechanical components inside of the truck. It's really like nothing else that you've experienced. So there's much less repair and maintenance cost. The only fluid in the vehicle, if you'd believe it, I kind of quiz people on this. There's only one fluid inside of a Tesla vehicle that you have to kind of have access to. It's windshield washer fluid. That's the only fluid. So you don't have like the traditional oil and all kinds of different things that you have to change on an internal combustion engine. Obviously, there's no gasoline and pieces like that. So it's a really interesting time. So I say all this to say electric vehicles, while probably not relevant for you right now because the charging stations don't really exist, it is worth keeping in mind and watching the market, because I believe that there will be a window of time that if you're an early adopter of electric vehicles and you're still under a contract with FedEx Ground that offers a fuel surcharge, you could potentially have a really profitable setup where you get electric vehicles and all the benefit that comes with that, the lower repair and maintenance cost, the big subsidy that you get from the government, and still collecting a fuel surcharge, right? There could be a really interesting opportunity as contractors that is on the table. So all that to say, if you haven't Googled Workhorse lately, take a look at their website. They've got some cool videos on there, and it's just something that is on my radar about electric vehicles. I get asked all the time about drones. Drones is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. The best argument against drone delivery is a 5-minute tour through any FedEx facility. If you go inside a FedEx facility, you'll see that the packages that we deliver are big and heavy and oversized. We do tires and trampolines and lawn chairs and mattresses, and an Apache helicopter would be a better fit than drone delivery for what we do. And a lot of people don't think about that when there's inclement weather. Cardboard boxes don't do well in the rain. So if you are carrying a cardboard box through the rain, you're not going to make it. And I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, right? And you all may judge me for this or judge Tennessee for this, but there's a lot of rural places in whatever state you all are into. And I would tell you, a 16-year-old boy, his best dream would be for a drone to fly over the farmland, right? And to shoot that thing out of the sky. Not only is that just fun, but B, you get a prize, right? If you hit the drone and it comes down, you get a prize. It's safe to say drone delivery is a long ways from any applicability to the FedEx ground contracting space. Most FedEx facilities service about 150 air miles around them. So if you look at a map, some of the facilities are metro, and so they don't cover 150 miles. They cover a much smaller radius. But the vast majority of facilities service about 150 miles around them. So when you think about a drone, I fly drones. I love drones. The battery life on those doesn't work. Flying 140 miles to the edge of the territory to drop a package and come back, that doesn't really work very well either. There's just a lot of challenges against drones. I think drones make a lot more sense for like hospital to hospital transfer. Let's say you're doing an organ transplant and it's somebody that, was brain dead and was an organ donor, and it could be a critical organ transplant from one close by hospital to another. You avoid all the traffic and it's just a very safe transfer building to building. Or maybe prescription drug delivery. It's light packages. They can be weather protected. Kind of some interesting things like that we'll see drones in those spaces way before we see anything in the FedEx delivery space.